Good morning. I'm Chris Jansing. It is Friday, November 27th. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. And we've got a lot to talk about this morning. President Trump finally seems to be coming to grips with his political fate. But his path to acceptance is littered with lies and allegations that could have massive implications for America's confidence in the electoral system and, more immediately, the GOP's bid to hold on to the Senate. Again, not true. No evidence. On one hand, you can dismiss that as nothing but frustration over losing the election and getting nowhere in his legal efforts to change the outcome. But this isn't just about the president. Remember, Trump, who had been reluctant, now says he will head to Georgia next weekend to campaign. But yesterday, his mind was still very much on his own political future. Thanksgiving. Kelly, one of the Thanksgiving now in the rearview mirror, we now wait to see if the holiday leads to a spike in new cases. Of course, the situation is already awful. How are health workers preparing for the weeks ahead where you are? Dasha, I'm going to cause a little problem here because I saw Jamie walk away, but is she still there? Because I have a question for her. I think it's really important on this misinformation. If we could ask her, there are a lot of folks who have been told, wait until you get really symptomatic before thinking about going into the hospital because the Dasha, thank you. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Gabe Gutierrez in New York as well. We've got a lot more ahead. We've got President Trump becomes former president in 54 days, and that has some folks in the intelligence world that has no access to any kind of classified materials. What kinds of information can former presidents get? Do they get them in written form, in briefings? And what are the main concerns you're hearing right now from the intelligence community? I don't think there are many people who think that Joe Biden is going to get on the phone and call Donald Trump and ask him to weigh in on something or send him somewhere as an envoy. He barely traveled as president himself. So even having said that, how unusual would it be or unprecedented for a president to say, never before, by a pandemic that's killed more than 260,000 Americans, but the past veterans who saw its politicization firsthand? Yeah, we're all feeling that way. We hope help is not too far away. NBC's Jeff Bennett, thank you for that. Up next, we'll talk to President-elect Joe Biden and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, spending part of their Thanksgiving holiday weekend thanking frontline workers. Thank you so much for coming on. I want you, if you can, to take us inside the discussions. What advice are you giving the incoming administration as we look at how to tackle these disturbing trends? Can you give us sort of your priority list?
Well, there are a few things that you're going to see prioritized.
I don't know, better ways to test. It occurred to me as I was driving through New York and I saw 3, 4, 5 hour long lines of people waiting to get tested. It's almost impossible in an urban setting to socially distance unless you're going to go, 20 blocks. And there are people walking by who don't have masks on. I mean, are there still ways that we need to be looking at to figure out how to get people tested in a more safe, more convenient, more reasonable way? I mean, not everybody has 5 hours in the middle of the day to stand in line to get tested. Dr. Celine Gounder, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We appreciate it. Like so much of our lives, big changes to Black Friday this year, with retailers bracing for an explosion of online kicking off the holiday season. More folks already got a head start on setting up their decorations. They normally go up after Thanksgiving, but some broke with tradition this year by starting as early as Halloween. They wanted to make life just a little bit more colorful during the pandemic. NBC's Carrie Sanders has more. How cute is that? Thanks to Carrie Sanders. President Trump and conservative media still pushing the unproven allegation. Good morning. I'm Chris Jansing. I hope you're all having a great holiday weekend. This morning, we're focused on will those claims of fraud keep their voters home? And after being asked 3 times if he would concede, President Trump did finally say he would leave office if the Electoral College votes for Joe Biden when it meets 18 days from now are for him. But he also said a lot could happen between now and then. So, Carol, the president repeated a lot of the same allegations we've heard time and time and time again. Anything new there? Now and when there might be a little more downtime right around Christmas. Again, no evidence of that. Ali, on the other hand, we know the president-elect's message has been one of unity. Talk about, look, I want to go back to what the president said, not just yesterday, but he's been saying all along. There are, quote, hundreds of thousands of fraudulent votes in multiple states. Is it even possible to rig an election on that kind of scale right now? That the president said is that if the Electoral College certifies the election, he will leave. So, yeah, and to that point, we've seen the court cases you mentioned. We've seen hand recounts, all kinds of things that are designed to instill more faith in the system. You've had any number of Republican elections officials saying all of this is legit. All of this is something you should have faith in. And yet we see in the polls that there are millions of Americans who still don't. Is there something you think can or should be done there in Paris? And how is Europe as a whole approaching this holiday season as this pandemic intensifies? What are the concerns there now that we are deep into this holiday season? Gabe Gutierrez, Matt Bradley, thanks to both of you. President Trump continuing with some breaking news. Iranian news outlets are reporting that a high-level Iranian nuclear scientist has been assassinated. We'll have the details coming up. We're just 39 days out from Georgia's Senate runoffs, and the races are heating up with Senate control hanging in the balance. Groups online and some of the more right-leaning conspiratorial MAGA folks are saying don't vote in the Georgia election because it's going to be fraudulent, to the point where Donald Trump Jr., who's no stranger to misinformation, actually tweeted nonsense, ignore those. Rick Tyler, always good to see you, and your bucolic background as well. Thanks so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
A growing number of 8.5 months after canceling the NCAA tournament, college basketball is back with a full slate of games tipping off last night. But as we've seen if a professional league can't keep its athletes safe, can a sport made of student athletes make sure its players are safe? Morgan Chesky, thank you. He's an infectious diseases physician and medical director of the Special Pathogens Unit. Talk about restarting college basketball or any college sport for that matter. And let's be honest about this. This is not whether or not your kid can play Little League or soccer. This is big business. It's big business for the school. Key there. We only have about 45 seconds left, but I do want to get to this, which is that there are lots of Americans who went out, and I know it was against CDC guidelines, but they did hold gatherings at Thanksgiving with their family or friends. So if that's the case, what can they do now? What should they be doing now? For example, should they self-quarantine for the next couple of weeks? The CDC says, as you know, Doctor, the real number of COVID cases in the U.S. could even be 8 times higher than what's been reported, and what's being reported is pretty horrible. If that assessment is accurate, Black Friday, like so much in our country, is very different this year because of the pandemic. Remember those crowds, the stampedes? The NBC's Ali Arouzi joins me now with details. Ali, what do we know? Out of Iran, where the country's defense ministry has just confirmed. Ali Arouzi with the very latest on this. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate you watching this hour of MSNBC Live. I hope you have a fantastic holiday weekend. Up next, stick around. We've got more news with Ellison Barber.